Hello everyone, this is a video lesson about the order of operations in algebra. It's the first in a series of video lessons that I'll be providing about algebra, and it's intended as review. I'm assuming that people watching this video have learned about the order of operations before, and they're watching this video to brush up on it, maybe because they're about to take an exam, maybe because it's the fall and they're beginning the school year and have forgotten some of this material over the summer. For whatever reason, I'm going to assume that you're reviewing this. If this is a first-time introduction to you for order of operations, I would recommend that instead you watch my more detailed video. In most every case where I have a review video, I will also try to provide a more detailed version for people who feel as though the topic is new or want to go through it more slowly and in more depth. So, assuming that this is new to you, the term PEMDAS and the phrase "please excuse my dear Aunt Sally" ought to be familiar. "Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally" simply helps you to remember the term PEMDAS, and PEMDAS will help you remember the order of operations. I strongly recommend that you memorize it. The first letter in PEMDAS stands for parentheses. Now, here's the first point of confusion. Parentheses are just one type of grouping symbol, and actually there are plenty of other types of grouping symbols we're going to be working with in algebra that need to come as the first thing you do in order of operations. One example would be brackets, but here are two others. The radical sign here and the absolute value bars here, both of those are grouping symbols. So if you had the expression in blue here and you wanted to simplify it, the first step you ought to take would be to add the 5 plus 4 because they're grouped together inside that grouping symbol. Then you'd be taking the square root of 9. Likewise, if you're doing the expression in red, do 2 minus 11 first and then find its absolute value. Get that done before you do 4 times 21 divided by. After parentheses come exponents, then multiply and divide. Here's the second point of potential confusion with PEMDAS. M and D come at the same level. They have the same priority. We'll talk a little bit later in this video about how you decide which to do first when you have both multiplication and division to do. Likewise, addition and subtraction come at the same level. And so again, we're going to talk about how to make that choice when you have to make a choice between addition and subtraction. The textbook that I tend to use, published by Houghton Mifflin, provides this order of operations description here, these first 4 steps. Hit the pause button if you need, but make sure that you've looked these over and understand these 4 steps. This is another way of saying it if you prefer this to the phrase PEMDAS. Moving on though, if you needed to hit the pause button, I hope you did and looked at that. But moving on, another type of grouping symbol is the fraction bar. Notice the 1 plus 2 are above the 4 minus 1. Well, really, the 1 plus 2 are grouped together. Likewise, the 4 minus 1 are grouped together. So you need to do the 1 plus 2 first and get 3, and the 4 minus 1 and get 3 before you do any division. If you do that, you're going to end up with 3 divided by 3, which is an easy problem to solve. Now, I've mentioned that the P in PEMDAS can be kind of confusing because there are other kinds of grouping symbols. There are actually some teachers who teach the word G or GEMDAS instead of PEMDAS. Either way, though, there's another third potential point of confusion, and that is the left to right rule. Let's get to that question of what do you do when 2 different operations have the same priority? For example, multiplication and division, or addition and subtraction. Well, here's a sample problem where you face that question. Apply the left to right rule in this case because you've got both division and multiplication and you have to decide which to do first. If you don't apply the left to right rule, if you think, well, M comes before D in PEMDAS, so I must do the multiplication first, you're going to end up with 4 times 2 is 8, and you're going to do 16 divided by 8. But this expression here is not equal to 2. 16 divided by 8 is not the right way to be doing this. The right answer is 8, because you really ought to be doing division first. left to right, the division came before the operation that had the same priority, this multiplication. 16 divided by 4 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. So when the priority is the same, like here, multiplication and division, or addition and subtraction, apply the left to right rule. Okay, here's one to practice. And I'll do this one for you, and then I'm going to give you some more to work on yourself. Without parentheses here, the first thing that I need to do, according to PEMDAS, is the 4 squared, the exponent. Well, 4 squared is 16. Now, the next thing I ought to do, according to PEMDAS, I've got multiplication, addition, and division. Multiplication and division have the same priority, left to right. I deal with the one on the left first. 3 times 16 is 48. Okay, now, according to PEMDAS, well, I've got addition and division. I ought to do division first. 8 divided by 4 is 2. Now I'm left with simple arithmetic. 48 plus 2 equals 50. Okay, I've solved this one. Now what I want you to do is hit the pause button and solve these other three. Notice all of these equations have the same information on the left except for the placement of the parentheses. You'll find, or you should find, that you're going to get 3 different answers. Hit the pause button. When you come back, I'm going to show you the answers to all 3 of these. Okay, I'm going to assume that you've solved all 3 and are back now after pausing. There are the answers you should have obtained. If you didn't, come in and ask questions. I'd be happy to talk about any and all of these with you. Here's some more to practice. I'm going to do the first one. I'm going to have you do the second 2. In this case, I'm going to substitute 4 in for x. So I've got 16 divided by 4 minus 2. According to PEMDAS, I do the division before I do the subtraction. 16 divided by 4 is 4. So now I've got 4 minus 2 is equal to 2. Now you go ahead and do the one in red and the one in green, substituting in as I've indicated here. Hit the pause button, and when you come back, I'll show you the right answers. Alright, I'm going to assume that you did that. Here are the answers you should have obtained. 17 and 0. If you didn't get those, come in and ask. Notice I've highlighted here that the first step in this green equation is to do the 2 cubed, and 2 cubed is 8. Okay, last thing to check before we're done with the video lesson. Find out whether or not your calculator knows order of operations. It really doesn't matter whether it does or not, as long as you understand order of operations, but it's useful for you to know whether or not the calculator is already figuring this out for you or isn't. If you plug this expression into your calculator and ask it to give you an answer, if it gives you 0.6, then it is not doing order of operations for you. It's doing the 10.5 minus the 6.3 first. On the other hand, if you get 6.1, then it is figuring out the order of operations for you, and the first thing your calculator did was the 6.3 divided by the 2.1. So check and see which yours gave you. That's it for the video lesson. I look forward to working with you on the next one.